She wasn't meant to fall for a human, much less a child. But that night under a sky scattered with ancient star, she made her a promise no queen had ever heard before. He said, "When I grow up, I'll marry you." She smiled, not because she believed him, but because for the first time in eons, someone spoke to her like she was more than a crown. She left that night, but she never truly left him. Years passed. The boy became a man, and the stars, they remembered. This isn't a fairy tale. It's not about destiny. It's about a promise made under the stars, and the man who crossed galaxies to keep it. Asterisk, asterisk. The hill behind Leo's house wasn't anything special, just a patch of grass and wildflowers that sloped toward the forest. But to him, it was a launch pad, a place where thoughts could take off before his feet ever did. That night, the sky felt heavier than usual, like it knew something was coming. Leo lay flat on his back, hands behind his head, eyes tracing constellations he hadn't yet memorized. He wasn't looking for answers, just a sign. Then it happened. A streak of light broke through the atmosphere brighter, faster, closer than any star should fall. Not a shooting star, not a dream. It was real. Fire and metal slicing across the night like a blade. The ship didn't crash. It landed silent, deliberate at the edge of the meadow, glowing soft and amber like the ember of a dying fire. Leo stood up without thinking. His legs moved before fear could find him. His fingers still held a few crushed wildflowers he'd picked earlier that day, yellow, purple, some with stems too short to be useful for anything. But he brought them anyway. The air felt strange near the ship. Not hot, not cold, just still, like the world was holding its breath. A seam opened along the hull. Light poured out, not harsh, but warm, like it belonged. And then she stepped out. She didn't walk so much as drift, graceful, slow, every movement deliberate. Her skin shimmered like metal in moonlight, a blend of lavender and gold that refused to choose just one. Her eyes didn't reflect the stars, they contained them. Leo froze. Not from fear, from awe. She was tall, too tall for Earth, but she knelt before him anyway, bringing those impossible eyes to his level. "You are not afraid," she said. Leo blinked. "Should I be?" She tilted her head slightly, considering. Then gently, her fingers touched one of the wildflowers in his hand. "This is a gift?" He nodded. "I didn't know what else to bring." Her smile didn't belong to royalty. It belonged to something older, sadder, kinder. Few approach what they don't understand. Fewer still offer flowers. He didn't know why he said it, maybe because he meant it, maybe because he didn't think he'd get another chance. "Will you come back someday?" Her smile faded, just a little. "Time is different where I come from. What is a moment for me might be a lifetime for you." Leo straightened his back. "I'll wait." She looked at him for a long time. Something unreadable flickered behind her eyes. "Then I will remember," she said. He swallowed. "When I grow up, I'll marry you." And for the first time, she laughed. Not mockingly, not politely, but softly, like something long buried had cracked open. "Be careful with promises, little human. Some are stronger than time." "I mean it," he said, crossing his heart with one trembling finger. "I believe you," she whispered. And then, like mist retreating at sunrise, she was gone. The door closed. The ship rose without a sound, leaving behind nothing but flattened grass and the faint scent of ozone. Leo stayed there until morning, wildflowers still in hand. He didn't tell anyone. Some memories don't need witnesses. They just need to be true. Time moved on, but Leo didn't. His body changed. His voice deepened. The world around him grew louder, faster, more demanding. But the memory, the quiet gravity of that night remained untouched. Like something sealed in amber, suspended just outside the flow of time. Others forgot the strange glow that lit the skies above their village. They chalked it up to weather balloons or atmospheric tricks. But Leo knew better. He didn't try to convince them. He didn't need to. Because every night, after the noise of the day had died down, he climbed the same hill, lay in the same spot, eyes on the sky, heart tuned to a frequency no one else could hear. Some nights he whispered her name, even though he never knew it. Other nights, he said nothing at all, just waited. He became the boy who was always looking up. And people noticed. At school, he stopped caring about playground games. He read books about astrophysics before he knew what the word meant. He asked questions no one could answer. His teachers praised his curiosity. His classmates called him strange. One day during recess, someone sneered, "Still waiting for your alien girlfriend?" Leo looked up from his notebook. There was no anger in his face, just calm certainty. "Yeah," he said simply. "I am." At home, it was harder. His parents tried. They told him gently then firmly that whatever he thought he saw that night wasn't real. That maybe it was a dream or a story he'd told himself so many times, he couldn't tell the difference anymore. But Leo could. Because dreams don't leave fingerprints on your shoulder. They don't hold wildflowers like they mean something. And they don't promise to remember you. So he learned to stay quiet. He studied harder, got older, went to university, chose astrophysics like it was already written in his blood. And still, every night the same ritual. Lie on his back, stare at the stars, and wonder if she was doing the same somewhere far beyond his reach. Professors noticed his drive. Brilliant, they called him. Obsessive, they muttered. But he didn't care. The math wasn't just equations. It was memory. It was hope wrapped in numbers. While others chased internships and careers, Leo chased a silence between stars. Because he hadn't just made a promise. He was building a bridge with it. It started the way most important things do quietly. Just a routine shift at the university observatory. The others had gone home, tired of chasing stardust and meaningless static. But Leo stayed. He always stayed. He sat alone in the control room, screens humming softly, the low thrum of machines mixing with the whisper of his own breath. Outside the dome, the sky turned blacker than ink, pierced by the steady blink of faraway fire. He wasn't looking for her anymore. Not really. Some nights, hope hurts too much to hold. And that was the moment it came. A flicker. At first, it looked like noise. A stutter in the feed, a rhythmic pulse buried in the background, a frequency just off from the natural radio waves they'd cataloged for years. But something about it felt wrong. Or maybe, too right. Leo leaned in, heart thumping harder than it had in years. He ran the data through the filter again, then 10 more times. It wasn't a glitch. It was a signal. Not random, not natural. It was intentional. Even the pattern had weight, like it was built to mean something. A message with structure, cadence, purpose, a voice trying to speak through light and static. And in that moment, the air shifted. Leo forgot how to breathe. Because deep down, he already knew. This wasn't just some anomaly from the void. This was hers. He didn't sleep that night, didn't eat. The world shrank into sound waves and code. He traced every pulse, every pause, cross-referencing star maps and deep space readings. And buried in that storm of data, he found them. Coordinates. Real, precise, tucked into the rhythm of the signal like a heartbeat. A place. A calling. A whisper from the past saying, "I remember." When the sun rose, Leo walked out of the observatory like a man reborn. His legs were shaky, his hands ice cold, but in his chest, there was fire. And the boy who once gave a flower to a stranger from the stars was about to chase her across them. The ship was quiet, too quiet for what it carried. Leo stood near the forward window, staring into a sky he no longer recognized. The earth was gone now, shrunk to a dot and then to nothing. What lay ahead wasn't charted, wasn't labeled, but it was calling. He clutched a small velvet box in his palm, weathered and worn, the kind you'd expect to find in a pocket after a lifetime of carrying it. Inside, a ring, forged by hand, shaped from fragments of a fallen meteor, polished with care. It wasn't perfect, but neither was he. It didn't need to be. The coordinates brought them to the edge of a binary star, System 2 suns, spinning in a slow, eternal waltz. And there, suspended in the dark between them, was a structure. Not a station, not a ship. A palace. Crystalline, monolithic, breathing light like a living thing. The surface shimmered with the same lavender and gold he remembered from her skin. As the ship approached, the refractions danced across the hull like a memory trying to wake. Someone gasped behind him. "It's beautiful." But Leo couldn't speak. Because beauty wasn't the point. She was here. Docking protocols engaged. The ship shuddered slightly, metal legs reaching for the ethereal surface. When the doors finally opened, The air that rushed in didn't feel cold or foreign, it felt familiar. He stepped out slowly, boots touching the alien floor like he was walking on sacred ground. And then he saw her. At the far end of the corridor, wrapped in that same shimmering light, she stood unchanged. Time had not touched her. Or maybe it had, but she had made peace with it long ago. Her eyes met his, and for a moment, the years vanished. They just looked at each other. No words. No explanations. Finally, she spoke. "You have returned." Leo's throat tightened. His voice came out low, hoarse. "I promised I would." He walked closer, each step echoing like a heartbeat in the quiet. Then he stopped, opened the velvet box with shaking hands, held it up not like an offering, but like a memory made solid. "I brought this." She looked down at the ring. Her fingers hovered over it, as if afraid touching it would make it disappear. "A creation born of your world, offered to mine." Leo nodded. "I made it for you. To prove it wasn't just words, I meant it. I still do." She took the ring, slipping it onto her finger with slow reverence. It shimmered there, imperfect and radiant, like it had always belonged. Her voice softened. "Do you know what you're asking, little human?" He smiled at the old name. "I'm not so little anymore." "No," she agreed, "but this will not be easy." "I didn't come for easy," he said. "I came for you." And for the first time since he saw her again, she stepped forward, closed the distance, and pulled him into her arms. Her touch was real. Her heartbeat, if that's what it was, pulsed against his chest like the low hum of a distant star. "You found me," she whispered. "No," Leo breathed. "You remembered me." They didn't greet him with silence. They greeted him with judgment. The great hall of Stellaris wasn't made for earthborn feet. Every inch of it gleamed like polished ice walls of living crystal that shimmered with memory, archways carved from collapsed stars. It wasn't built to welcome strangers. It was built to remind them they didn't belong. Leo stood tall, though he felt small. Not because of the size of the chamber, but because of the weight in the eyes that stared down at him. At the far end, on thrones sculpted from light itself, sat the king and queen of Stellaris. Their presence was ancient, poised, almost too perfect to be real. And beside them, armored in ceremonial steel, stood Calvorn. He didn't bow. Neither did Leo. The silence broke with a voice like thunder wrapped in silk. "You dare return here," the king said, "with a human body and a boy's promise?" Leo didn't flinch. "I returned because I kept it." The queen's gaze was colder, sharper. "You bring with you a symbol of Earth's stubbornness. You wish to bind yourself to our daughter as if love were enough to override balance." Calvorn stepped forward, one hand resting on the hilt of a blade that wasn't just ornamental. "He's a trespasser. He should have been intercepted before reaching orbit." The queen raised her hand. Calvorn stopped, but not because he feared her. He feared disrespecting the throne. Not Leo. Leo felt her watching him, the queen, the woman he had chased across the stars. But now he had to speak for himself. "I don't come as a conqueror or a thief. I made a promise, and I came to keep it. Not to take her away, but to stand beside her." The king's laugh was quiet, empty. "You think devotion is a currency we trade in here?" Leo's eyes locked with his. "I think devotion is the only thing that means anything anywhere." Calvorn's lips curled. "You love her, do you?" "I do." "Then leave, because staying will destroy her." His voice wasn't angry, it was certain. Like a man stating a fact written into gravity. "You're weak, Leo. You don't know the weight of command. You don't understand what it means to carry a crown forged in war and woven through generations." Leo looked at the queen, the only soul in the room who hadn't spoken yet. She stood at the base of the dais, silent, still wearing the ring. "Let her speak," Leo said quietly. All eyes turned. And finally, she did. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "I remember a boy who offered flowers when others would have run. I remember his voice, promising things no child should dare say. And I remember, I never forgot." The queen took a breath in it, a pause deep enough to shift the room. "But I am not that girl. I am a queen now, and a queen is not free." The king nodded, proud. Leo stepped closer. "Then say it. Say I should go. Not your father, not your fiancé, you." She looked at him, and for the briefest second, her mask cracked. But then, "You are not welcome here," she said. The words sliced like cold wind across stone. Leo didn't argue, didn't beg. He bowed not to the throne, not to Calvorn, but to her, and turned. But as he walked toward the door, he didn't hear the triumphant breath of the court. He only heard the quietest sound of all, her voice breaking, as she whispered his name, so softly, only the stars could hear it. That night, the palace didn't sleep. The corridors hummed with quiet surveillance. The walls pulsed faintly like veins. Servants moved in silence. Guards stood taller. No one spoke of what had happened in the throne room, but the air carried it. Tense, fragile, like the palace itself held its breath. And somewhere within it, so did she. The queen sat alone in her private chamber, the stars beyond her window moving slowly, like they pitied her. Her ring still on her finger. Imperfect, earthen, unworthy by every standard her world revered. And yet, she couldn't take her eyes off it. Her voice whispered aloud into the quiet. Not to anyone, just to the universe. You should have let him go. She stood, walked toward the mirrored wall where her ceremonial crown rested floating above its pedestal. The light around it shifted, almost alive. It pulsed once as she neared, as if asking, "Are you certain?" She didn't touch it. Instead, she turned away. In the lower wing, near the edge of the docking bay, Leo sat in silence alone, unguarded, not imprisoned, but not free. His request to leave peacefully had been granted. The shuttle was being prepared. No trial, no exile, just silence. It was meant to feel merciful, but it felt like being erased. He stared at his open hands, palms empty. He had come this far, crossed light years, carried a boy's promise in a man's body, and in the end, the only thing waiting for him was nothing. But then, a whisper, no footsteps, just the hiss of the door sliding open behind him. She stepped through without ceremony, no guards, no advisors, no crown. Only her. Her cloak draped low across her shoulders, hair no longer woven with threads of light, only falling soft and silver behind her. In the dim bay light, she looked less like a queen and more like the girl he'd met under the stars. Leo. He stood slowly. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, she answered. But we are. Silence. Not tense. Just full, like there were too many words between them, pressing against the air. Finally, she took a breath. I lied when I said you weren't welcome. I was protecting my title, my throne, my world. A pause. But I forgot. I never asked if any of those things were still protecting me. Leo stepped closer, his voice low. So what now? She didn't speak. She just reached for his hand, held it tight, and then whispered two words that would start a war, end a lineage, and ignite something neither of them fully understood. Come with me. They ran, not with panic, but with purpose. Through corridors carved from starlight, past empty halls that once echoed with formality and silence. Alarms hadn't sounded yet, but they would. At the final checkpoint, a lone guard stood in their way. He looked at her, at Leo, then stepped aside. Some loyalties run deeper than orders. They boarded a small ship, a diplomatic courier, fast and nearly untraceable. As the engines powered up, she stood beside him in the cockpit, both hands resting on the control panel, breathing like the wind had returned to her lungs. Where are we going? Leo asked. She looked out into the dark, and for the first time in her life, with no crown, no guards, no titles, she smiled. Somewhere no one rules us. The ship drifted between systems like a ghost, unregistered, untraced, unseen. Inside, silence wasn't emptiness. It was a kind of peace. Leo moved carefully through the narrow cabin, adjusting solar filters, monitoring energy levels, checking the recycled water systems like it mattered. It didn't. They both knew it. But doing something felt better than doing nothing. The stars outside moved slow, slower than memory. And somewhere in the quiet, she began to change. At first, it was subtle. A longer pause between breaths. A moment of dizziness after waking. She blamed it on gravity fluctuations, on recalibration lag, on anything but the truth her body had already decided. It wasn't until she collapsed just for a moment, just enough to make Leo panic, that the truth rose up between them like a rising tide. He caught her before she hit the floor, held her in his arms as the hum of the ship faded into the background. Hey, I've got you. Talk to me. What's wrong? Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes weren't afraid. They were full, alive. And in that quiet, she placed his hand gently on her abdomen. It took him a moment to understand, and when he did, he didn't speak. He just stared at her, then at his hand, then back at her. You're sure? He whispered. She nodded. I knew the moment it happened. My kind, we feel life begin. Silence. Then she smiled, tired but real. Our child. Leo sat back slowly, hand still resting against her body, as if he were afraid to let go. A child of Earth and stars. A child who was never supposed to exist, she added softly. They didn't cry. There was no dramatic music, no declarations. Just stillness and awe. Leo leaned his forehead to hers, eyes closed. Do you think they'll come for us now? They were always going to come, she said. Now they'll just come faster. He exhaled, long and slow. Then we better keep moving. She nodded, then placed her hand over his. Whatever happens, we made something they can't erase. And I'll protect it, Leo said, his voice firmer now. Both of you. The stars outside blinked. The engines flared. And somewhere deep inside that stolen ship, a heartbeat flickered into life. It didn't take long. Not for the rumors. Not for the fear. Across the interstellar channels, quiet whispers turned into official alerts. Broadcasts spoke of treason, of a queen who fled her throne with a human fugitive, of a child unconfirmed, unproven, but too dangerous to be ignored. They're saying it'll destabilize bloodlines, Leo muttered, staring at the transmission. That it violates a 1,000-year purity code. That we're contamination. She didn't respond. She just stood at the window of their ship, hands resting gently on her stomach, as if shielding it from the world with nothing but her touch. They fear what they can't control, she said, and they've never been able to control love. The ship's proximity alarm lit up. A red glow. A single ping. Then 3. Interceptors, Leo said. Tracking us? They moved. Not in chaos, in rhythm. The way only those who had fled long enough knew how to move fast, silent, without questions. She rerouted the core signature. He masked the drive trail. They dived between asteroid belts and gas giants, navigating gravitational currents like predators in dark water. Still, they were followed. Not just by ships, by voices. Diplomatic envoys, ultimatums, promises of mercy if she returned alone, threats cloaked in protocol. And from Stellaris itself, her parents. You were born to lead, her mother's message played, not to vanish into dirt with a creature who cannot outlive a century. She deleted the message without blinking. Their hiding places grew fewer. An abandoned moon base with only one working airlock. A forgotten orbital station left to rust in the debris field of a collapsed satellite net. And through it, all her belly grew. Her balance shifted, her breath shortened, but her resolve only deepened. Leo noticed everything. He stopped sleeping more than an hour at a time. He built escape routes in every docking hatch, rewired failsafes to reroute gravity, modified their food recycler just so she wouldn't have to bend down. You don't have to do everything, she whispered one night. He kissed her forehead. I do, because they'll try to take you, and I won't let them. What if they succeed? Then they'll have to kill me first. And she believed him. One night, if you could call it night in deep space, the stars outside shifted, and the ship powered down mid-flight. Leo jumped from the pilot's seat, heart thudding. What is it? A pulse scan, she said quietly. They've found us. A glowing mark appeared on the main panel. A beacon, a soft signal sent across deep space. Not a weapon, not a fleet, but a message. Surrender the human. Return to your station. The child will be extracted and spared. She stared at the screen. Then at Leo. They're not just afraid of us, she said. They're afraid of who our child will become. He stepped beside her. Then we keep running. She She nodded. But both of them knew they couldn't run forever. Somewhere, beyond the blinking stars and fractured systems, destiny had stopped waiting. And it was catching up. It began with a sound. Soft, fragile, barely louder than her breath. But Leo knew that sound. He'd heard it in 1,000 recordings, in medical briefings, in every warning file he'd studied about hybrid pregnancies. She was in labor. The ship was docked inside the hollow remains of a drifting freighter of their last safe havens. The walls were old, groaning with memory. No working med bay, no doctor, just them. Just now, Leo rushed to her side. She was already on the floor, one hand pressed to her stomach, the other gripping the cold metal beneath her. "It's early," she whispered. "Too early. We'll get through this," he said. "You're not alone. Not now. Not ever." She winced. Her breath came sharp and staggered. "They're coming. I can feel them. Not just the child, the ships, the ones who hunt." Leo cursed under his breath, but stayed calm. Always calm for her. The emergency lights flickered. Gravity warped slightly. The old ship responded to pressure it was never designed to withstand. She cried out once, a sharp, strangled sound that cut straight through him. He took her hand, knelt beside her, brushing sweat-damp hair from her face. And then, he reached into his coat, pulled out the velvet box, opened it. The ring, simple, imperfect, forged from a fallen star and a foolish heart. "Do you remember this?" Her eyes fluttered open, glazed with pain but alive. She nodded. "I remember everything." He swallowed. "Back then, I was a boy who thought a promise was enough." "And now?" she asked, voice trembling. "Now I know. A promise is nothing unless you renew it. Especially when it hurts, especially when it matters." He held up the ring. "I vow to stay. To fight. To raise this child with you. Not as a fugitive. Not as a dreamer. But as your partner. And if you'll let me, your husband." Tears welled in her eyes, whether from pain or joy, he couldn't tell. She reached out her hand. He slid the ring onto her finger again, this time not in ceremony, but in desperation, in truth, in now. "I accept," she whispered, "even if this is our last day." "Especially if it is," he answered. She gritted her teeth, another contraction ripping through her like a star imploding. He caught her as her body shook. "I'm here," he said. "I've always been here." And the ship, that ancient broken cradle of steel, bore witness to the most human act in the universe, a vow, a birth, and a love that refused to die. The baby had just taken its first breath. It was faint, soft, and struggling but alive. Its skin shimmered faintly, like its mother's, but its eyes were Leo's. He held the child against his chest, hands shaking. Not from fear, but from something far bigger, something no language, earthly or alien, had ever fully described. He looked up at her, his wife drained, pale, yet still holding herself like a queen. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "She," the queen corrected, smiling through pain, "she's our beginning." But beginnings rarely come without endings. And outside, the sky was breaking open. The scanners had been silent for hours. Now, they screamed. Dozens of heat signatures, warp drives cutting through space like blades. Stellaris interceptors. And at their head, Calvorn. "He's here," Leo said quietly. "Of course he is," she replied. "He was always going to be." Leo handed her the child, gently, reverently, as if transferring not just a life, but a universe. Then he stood. No armor. No weapons that mattered. Only conviction and love, sharper than any blade. He moved through the corridors of the freighter, each step echoing like a countdown. The ship's shielding wouldn't hold long. The docking bay was exposed. No real defenses. But he had something else. He had everything to lose. The blast came, first an energy surge tearing through the outer hull. Then boots. Steel slamming against steel. Calvorn entered like a storm tall, unshaken, clad in full battle armor, traced with royal insignia. Behind him, his squad fanned out, faceless behind visors. Leo stood at the center of the bay, unarmed, between them and the chamber where she lay recovering with their daughter. You have no idea what you've started, Calvorn said, his voice low. Then enlighten me, Leo replied. Calvorn stepped closer. You defiled the bloodline. You stole our queen. You created a child that doesn't belong in any world. Leo didn't blink. Then maybe it's time the world's changed. I gave you mercy once, Calvorn growled. I won't again. I didn't come here for your mercy, I came for her. And now, she's mine. Calvorn drew his Wapona blade of pure energy, humming like a broken star. You're not worthy of her. Leo breathed once. Deep. Then said, I didn't come here to prove my worth. I loved her before I knew what a throne was. And I swore to protect her before I even knew what war felt like. He opened his arms. You want to kill me? Do it. But you're not touching that child. The soldiers behind Calvorn tensed. But then something happened. A pulse. Not a weapon. A wave. From deep inside the ship, the child's cry echoed piercing and high, like a bell made of starlight. The very walls trembled. Crystal fragments floated upward as if gravity itself bowed to her voice. Calvorn staggered back. What is this? And then she appeared. The queen. No crown, no robe. Just her. Standing behind Leo, cradling the child, wrapped in a faint aura of violet light. This is not a threat, she said. This is a future. That child is a bridge between blood and dust, between thrones and broken soil. Kill him, and you kill your last chance at peace. The soldiers looked at Calvorn, but none moved, because deep down they saw it too. Not a war, not treason, but a shift, a truth, a new center of gravity. Leo stepped beside her, took her hand, and together they stood, not running, not hiding, just ready. So, Leo said, eyes locked on Calvorn. What now? No declaration was made. No formal treaty signed. No parades, no triumph, no fanfare. And yet, the galaxy shifted. Not with noise, but with silence. The kind that comes after the storm passes, after something ancient breaks and something new breathes in the dust it left behind. The fleet of Stellaris returned home not with prisoners, but with questions. Their weapons stayed holstered. And for the first time in centuries, their court fell quiet. The queen did not return to her throne. She did not kneel before it either. Instead, she lived on a quiet moon orbiting a gas giant. No palace, no attendants, just warmth, just wind, just stars that no longer felt so far away. Leo built their home with his own hands, clumsy, crooked in places, but strong, real. He grew food. He studied. He held his daughter at midnight and whispered to her in 2 languages, neither of which she fully understood yet, and neither of which mattered. Because she listened. And she glowed. Sometimes, when the wind was still and the moonlight poured through their windows just right, Leo would look at his wife, the once queen, now mother, and forget that they were ever hunted. Forget that the stars once tried to tear them apart. All he saw was what had always been there. A woman, a promise, a future. The child grew fast. Too fast for human standards. Too strange for alien ones. She laughed in pulses of light. She touched machines and they responded. She didn't speak often, but when she did, her voice held weight, like gravity made words just for her. And when she touched someone, truly touched them, they remembered things they'd forgotten they knew. Some called her miracle. Others called her anomaly. But to Leo, she was just his daughter. And to the queen, she was hope made flesh. Years later, at the edge of a new council chamber built not of marble or metal, but glass and soil, the child stepped forward, still young, still glowing. She addressed beings of all shapes and kinds. From Earth, from Stellaris, from worlds no one could pronounce yet. And she said, I am not one of you, and I am not apart from you. I am both. There was no applause. Just stillness. Then nods. Then tears. And something else? Understanding. Back on the hill behind their quiet home, where stars still danced, Leo lay beside his wife. The grass beneath them was cold, but her hand in his wasn't. He looked up at the night sky. Do you remember where it started? She nodded. You gave me flowers. He smiled. I also said I'd marry you. And I said, promises shouldn't be made lightly. But they should be kept, he added. She turned to him, eyes reflecting constellations. You did. And so ended the story not of royalty, but of two hearts who defied galaxies. Of a child born between dust and starlight, and of a promise once whispered by a boy beneath the sky that echoed so far, it changed the shape of the universe. So in the end, it wasn't about a crown. It wasn't about war, bloodlines, or prophecy. It was about a promise made by a boy under the stars that outlived time, crossed galaxies, and gave birth to a new future. He chased her across space, not to conquer her, but to stand beside her. And when the world said their love was impossible, they didn't argue. They proved it. Together, they rewrote the rules. Together, they brought a child into the universe. Not as a weapon, but as a bridge between worlds. And maybe that's how real change begins. Not with empires, but with one vow kept. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, if it made you feel something, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our journey. Because this was just one chapter. And out there, beyond the stars, 1,000 more stories are still waiting to be told.